All right. Good afternoon once again. This is Dave Nadler and Matt Senna here. We're here at the NWS Peachtree City. Going to talk a little bit about upcoming potential severe weather for this weekend. Appreciate everybody joining us this afternoon. Sounds like after we did a quick mic check and screen check that everybody can hear us loud and clear and see our screen. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. And at the very end, we'll take questions. Also want to let everybody know that we are recording this, so we'll be able to share it with people that couldn't make the actual live webinar at the moment. So, okay, so I'm sure most of you have been kind of following along over the last couple of days at this potential. Things are obviously coming together a little bit more agreement to increase the increasing severe threat for Sunday for the area. Right now, again, we're still a couple of days out, 2-3 days out. So the details of certain things are going to change between now and then. I don't think we have to remind people that, but it's a good thing to say up front. But this is what we're seeing right now, and this is what we want to share with everybody at the moment. So basically, we're going to go through detail here in just a little bit, but the primary threats on Sunday are going to be damaging winds. We cannot rule out tornadoes because the low-level wind shear along with the instability with the system is sufficient enough to support tornadoes in addition to the damaging wind threat. Heavy rain, wanted to throw that in there because sometimes that gets kind of lost in the shuffle. If we get a quick 1 to 2 inches of rain in a few hours, that can certainly pose at least a localized flooding threat. A couple things in the middle there, the caveats or additional concerns is, and we're not really anticipating this at the moment, but if we see any storms or cells that develop out ahead of the main line that's going to be approaching from the west sometime on Sunday, some of those storms could have an increasing threat for tornadoes. Most of you have heard the term supercells, and that's what we could be looking at in the warm sector ahead of the main line. Now, that chance is really low at this point, but we just wanted to kind of throw it out there because the possibility is there. And the other thing we wanted to mention is that we could see kind of a 1-2 punch where the initial, we call prefrontal main band of storms moves through during the day Sunday, and then we get a secondary line that develops with the cold front as it moves through later in the day into the evening hours on Sunday. And that secondary band or zone of storms is more going to be with a potential like hail and rain or wind threat, not really a tornadic threat, but certainly could see some hail because we got the cold core loft from the upper level system that's going to be moving in with the cold front near the surface. So timing, we'll talk more about this, but right now, for most areas, especially along and west of I-85, we're thinking as early as could be moving in the northwest corner of Georgia around 6 o'clock in the morning, around daybreak there, all the way through noon to 2 o'clock in the early afternoon hours before things kind of get out of there. That's with the initial band, not necessarily the secondary band that could develop with the cold front. And then east and south of I-85, generally thinking around the midday time frame all the way through the afternoon hours, early evening. So that's kind of the main points, and we'll go into a little bit more detail right now. Again, this is, for most of you, probably no surprise, the Storm Prediction Center this morning took their day 3 outlook and put most of north and central Georgia in what we call an enhanced risk. This is a level 3 out of 5 when you're looking at the scale of risk levels that SPC puts out. And mind you, putting an area in an enhanced risk on day 3 is pretty significant. And not to say we don't want to overhype this, but it is it's very important that we pay close attention to what happens between now and the next 48 to 72 hours. It's a very potent system, and we are in April, so we should take this extremely seriously over the next few days. So that's kind of what the latest outlook is from SPC. Of course, their day 2 outlook will be issued overnight tonight into tomorrow morning for Sunday. So we'll see if anything changes with that. I seriously doubt they back off on it, but that's always a possibility. But at this point, we'll probably wind up staying in the day 2 enhanced risk, but we'll keep an eye on things and certainly share that with you guys tomorrow. Okay, we wanted to just, knowing what the risk is from SPC, we wanted to draw down a little bit of what the potential threats are going to be. And primarily, we're definitely thinking damaging winds. We already mentioned the threat for tornadoes. Can't rule out a couple of cells producing some hail, but we don't think hail and the heavy rain flood threat is going to be the main concern. It's mainly going to be the damaging wind gust and the potential for tornadoes. So our confidence level right now at what, we're confident that we're going to see something. But as far as the timing, our confidence is a little bit lower, of course, on the timing of everything and also the severity. So that hopefully over the next day or two will come into a little bit better agreement for us. We'll be able to share that with everybody. But that's kind of where we stand right now with potential threats and our confidence level on these threats. Okay, next slide shows, again, we've already talked about the timing, but just wanted to kind of draw it out for you. Basically, in including the Atlanta metro area, if you're along the I-85 corridor and points to the west and north, we're thinking it could arrive, the initial line of storms could arrive in northwest Georgia as early as 6 to 8 o'clock in the morning and then progress to the south and east through the morning hours into the early afternoon, and then getting to the south and east of I-85 in the afternoon hours, generally speaking. So we feel at this point that's what we feel best with respect to timing. I did want to mention, and we already talked about that secondary round of storms that could develop ahead of the cold front. That'll follow this initial line, and we're looking like that will start to approach the northwest part of the state and the northern half of the state, if you will, sometime in the mid-afternoon hours after 3 or 4 o'clock, we think, and then lasting all the way through late evening, potentially midnight. And again, the threats with that secondary line, with the actual cold front itself, we lose the tornadic threat quite a bit, and then but we still have the hail and the wind threat along with the heavy rain with any of those storms. And last bullet on that slide is we do feel pretty confident, unless things slow down drastically, that everything should be clear of our forecast area by midnight on Sunday night. Okay, this is a little. The next slide is a time lapse showing one of our models, short range models, not necessarily a high resolution model because we're not quite in that 48-hour window of seeing more high resolution data coming from the models. But the general timing of the initial line or band of storms moving through early in the day on Sunday, you could see, and then the backside with that secondary area developing across the northern third of Georgia coming in later in the day into the evening hours. This is a 3-hour loop, I believe. It's 3 hours, starting around 2 to 5 o'clock in the morning on Sunday, and then running all the way through about 2 o'clock in the morning on Monday, which you can see that last image shows most of the activity getting well east of the forecast area after midnight on Sunday night into early Monday morning. So just wanted to, we'll tailor this and update this either through email or additional briefings tomorrow to kind of fine tune some of the what some of the higher resolution models are coming out with. But for the most part, this is what we're looking at. Okay, real quickly, didn't want to lose the rain potential with the severe weather. A lot of times when we get these broad bands of storms that are kind of training, we could get a quick 1 to 2 inches of rain in a short period of time. So we can't rule out the localized threat of seeing flooding or even flash flooding. It's real low at this point, but we get a good 1 to 2 inches, especially in the higher elevations of North Georgia where we have some more complex terrain. We definitely could see some localized flooding. But this is what we expect. Basically, most of this rain is going to fall during the day on Sunday through Sunday evening. Again, most of the area, especially north of I-20, west of I-85, could see anywhere from 1 to 2 inches. Don't be surprised to see some locally higher amounts. We always, this is more of a general broad brush kind of look at how much rain we're going to get with the system. But we can definitely see 3, maybe even 3.5, 4 inches in spots. But it's going to be real localized and isolated at this point with those amounts. Okay, finally, just to wrap things up, what we've kind of talked about again, increasing severe threat for just about the entire area on Sunday. Primary threats, especially with that initial band, that prefrontal band moving through, damaging winds, definitely tornadoes, which could, if it moves in with the line itself, we'll be looking for those brief spin-ups that occur along and just ahead of the line. Of course, can't rule out the heavy rain threat moving through. And then we're also going to be watching closely over the next 24 to 48 hours if we start to see conditions support any discrete cells that might develop out of the head of the line. At this point, that potential is low, but we just wanted to kind of throw that out there that if that does occur, especially if the system slows down and we get a little bit more instability to work with on Sunday, we could be looking at some discrete cells, which could, of course, result in a higher tornado threat in those supercells. Again, the timing, early in the morning across extreme northwest Georgia, pushing through the I-85 corridor through the morning into the early afternoon hours, and then pushing to the south and east during the afternoon hours with an additional round of storms possible with the cold front itself later in the day through the evening hours across the northern half of the area. So that is, in a nutshell, what we're looking at, guys, right now. Did want to mention for future updates and briefings that overnight tonight into early tomorrow morning, our mid-shift will likely send out an email update with some graphics based on what's changed between now and overnight tonight. We are planning another special webinar briefing, such as how we're doing it today, tomorrow afternoon at 2 o'clock. So look forward to that. And then following tomorrow afternoon's briefing, we'll likely do another email update in the evening or overnight hours heading into Sunday morning. And then by then, we'll pretty much be in, unless timing drastically changes, we'll pretty much be immersed into the system at that point. So you may have some questions about whether or not we go under a watch. Obviously, in this type of an environment, what we're seeing, it wouldn't shock us at all if we go under some sort of watch. More than likely, it's going to be a tornado watch. So keep that in mind, because on Sunday morning, if you get woken up, especially in the western part of our area, northwest Georgia, if a tornado watch is issued at like 5 in the morning, don't be surprised. So be prepared for that now. And then, of course, we'll try to fine tune the timing and potential threats over the next 24 hours or so. All right. That's all we have, guys. Am I missing anything, Matt?
Don't believe so.
I will open it up for questions. Those of you on the line, lost people.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened. Those of you that have any questions, you can type them into the chat or into the message here. We'll try to answer those. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording at this point, and we'll share that with everybody after we get done here.